What's going on? It's your boy Sermon at Sermon's Domain on Twitter. Today is the day for my favorite albums of 2016. Unlike a lot of people, I've held off on doing my list because I wanted to wait until the very last to decide. Because you never know. Artists come out of nowhere. There could have been a drop on Christmas that would have ended up on my list. Not saying that anything did, but there's always that possibility. And so now I'm looking at it like we have 4 or 5 days left. I really don't anticipate anything big dropping in the next couple days. So it's safe to say that I can do my favorite albums of 2016 list. I chose 10. I didn't want to do any further. I think this year it was harder because it's harder to really enjoy full albums. I review albums. And so once I review all the stuff from Friday, it's like Monday or Tuesday, and then I might listen to other albums that came out the past week that I don't necessarily review just because it's a whole lot of work. So this year I've noticed that it was tougher to make a list because it's like, what albums was I really revisiting and listening to in full? There's a couple of them, and then there's ones that I remember fondly. So my list is kind of like that. I think in 2017, my goal is to really establish what song or what albums I really enjoyed. Like, I want to be able to say, I love this album, and when I have some downtime, I'm going to revisit it. I'm going to revisit it like throughout the year just so I have a clear idea. With that said, let's get into it. As with anything that I do pertaining to my favorite of the year, I don't want to put like a ranking. So these are in no particular order. But if I did have to place an order, there would be one album at the top. And that album is Anderson .Paak's Malibu. I felt like Anderson had a breakout year. He released 2 albums. He toured all through the year. He had singles placed on video games and the NBA and just everywhere. It was kind of hard to escape him. He was on all the late night talk shows, etc., etc., featured on some of your favorite rappers, projects, you know, just doing everything that he can. And so Malibu is really what kicked that off. And it helped that the album really lived up to the expectation and then some. I love that Anderson just has this unique sound and that he's able to bring out the best in everybody he works with. All the guest features on there were just great, from Schoolboy Q to The Game, and a lot of the songs were just very catchy. It's an album that I think if it was not released on Empire Distribution, I feel like it could have been, if it was on a major label, I should say, it would have been huge, like even bigger than it is now. Empire did some really great stuff with Anderson though. They were able to get him all these placements all over the place. So, you know, it's kind of like just wishful thinking, like, man, what if this album was even bigger than it was? And I think that, that speaks to the testament of what the album meant to me in 2016. The next album on my list is Mac Miller's The Divine Feminine. I love that Mac is doing these concept albums. He is, well, let's start off with the album originally was going to be an EP. It was going to be like 4 or 5 songs. It was going to be centered around love, exactly what we hear on the album. But he felt like he had to expand on it. And I'm so glad that he did, because he was able to create this magnificent body of work. I love that the intro, Congratulations, is not about falling in love. It's about falling out of love. Like, that's where we start the album. You have an album that's focused around love, but it's not focused around falling in love or just being in love. He shows all different sides of it. The stress that comes with it, the problems, all the different aspects. So it really feels like a really great relationship type of album. And then he was able to get some good guest features on there that were kind of unexpected. Ty Dolla $ign, having Kendrick on God Is Fair, Sexy, Nasty. And not having Kendrick rap, but having Kendrick do a hook, a singing hook at that. So that was like different. He had CeeLo, brought out the best in CeeLo. So The Divine Feminine was one of my favorite albums of the year. The next one on my list is Lloyd Banks' All or Nothing, Live It Up. There was a small narrative in 2016 where we saw the return of Lloyd Banks. And usually he drops a mixtape and goes ghost. This time he dropped 2 mixtapes, revived his Blue Friday series, and he's still going. So it makes me hopeful that 2017 we're going to see Lloyd Banks really do some damage. I would love to see him sign somewhere. I know there was someone on Twitter that was saying that Pusha T should sign Lloyd Banks to Good Music. I think that would be a good fit. I think Banks musically is in his prime. I love the Punchline King era of Lloyd Banks, but I love this whole technical, I can rap better than everybody type of Banks that we've been seeing. And so I had to juggle between, do I want Halloween Havoc 3 or All or Nothing Live It Up on this list? It was really close because Halloween Havoc 3 has one of my favorite Lloyd Banks songs in a long time, but All or Nothing Live It Up I felt like was a better put together body of work. So realistically, I could have included either of the projects on this list. Now it's time to put your pinky fingers up to the moon. Bruno Mars 24 Karat Magic. I was surprised with this album. I've never listened to a full Bruno Mars album before, but I saw the hype surrounding it on Twitter and decided to give it a spin, and I was surprised how good it was. I can't say that Bruno Mars is a unique artist because he's pretty much just borrowing from different eras, different cultures, like funk, R&B, and, etc. At the same time, though, Bruno Mars sounds so good doing it. He's able to emulate these different eras, these different genres, and he does it so perfectly that you just can't get mad at him for doing it. He makes good music is the underline of all of this. Versace on the Floor was really just a beautiful record. I think the R&B songs on the album are the better, but I can definitely get down with like a Perm. I love that you can just throw this album on and it just goes through a wide range of emotions. You can dance to it. You can reminisce on old relationships. You can lust over new ones. So there's just a lot on this album that I really enjoyed. Now here's an album that really wasn't an album. It was more of a collection of songs. Kendrick Lamar's Untitled Unmastered. It was simply 8 songs of leftovers from the To Pimp a Butterfly sessions. These are songs that didn't make the cut. Not because they didn't fit, but just for the sake of they just didn't make the cut is all I can think of. Because a lot of the records that you listen to, they do fit if you really were to sit down and try to place them into To Pimp a Butterfly. I can't remember, in my review I was talking about, I think it was one of the songs, and you can hear like a familiar slogan that Kendrick uses on To Pimp a Butterfly, and you're like, you can definitely place this song in between this one and this one. I can't recall what it is at the moment, but I thought that Kendrick releasing this collection of songs was a good idea because it gives Kendrick some more content for his fans, because we are having to wait 2 years per album almost. It's not like Kendrick just turns around and drops an album and, we get it like that. It's not like a Future where we're going to get several albums, mixtapes in a year. Kendrick is someone who values the quality over quantity, and it definitely shows. Even in the songs that didn't make the album, that made it onto Untitled Unmastered, these are some really good songs. My personal favorite on there was Untitled '02. I love the Kendrick getting aggressive, and just that whole beat, man, was just crazy. But I also like Untitled '08, walking around with these blue faces. Like, that was a good one. Untitled '07 was also memorable just because it had like that little breakdown of him. Like, I believe it's in the middle of the song just singing. It was like, there's a lot on the album to enjoy. It's a nice mixture of stuff. You also had guest features from Punch and J-Rock and SZA, so it was just a good album to me. Next on my list is Flatbush Zombies 3001, A Laced Odyssey. This one is an album that came out earlier in the year, in about March, and I feel like it's not getting the look that it deserves. I think it is definitely a top 20 album. Like, when I see all these lists on Complex, on Billboard, and everywhere else, it deserves to be in the top 20. It's in the top 10 for me because I felt like this album was surprising. I think that is one of the things that goes into my favorite albums of the year, is that I'm surprised by them. I'm not expecting this album to be that good, but here we are. Here it is. It's sounding great. I love the production because it sounds cohesive, and it's like it's one long story. I know that if you were to turn on the movie 2001, you would be able to kind of sync it together. That's what they were saying. Like, if you sync it from this point and listen to the music and watch the movie, it kind of syncs up. So I thought that was a really cool concept. And then just the music was great. Rest in Peace CD was a nice one. R.I.P. CD. The Odyssey, the intro, that one, like, anytime an intro draws you in, you just have to listen to the entire album from that point. And I feel like the three did a good job at that. The next album / EP on my list is Lloyd's True EP. It's 5 songs, and it's just a great album to me. Great EP. I'm kind of grouping everything together. I don't want to do like an albums list, an EP list, and a mixtape. I'm grouping it all together because it's all music at the end of the day. And with Lloyd, he's gearing up for a comeback. And I think he did a good job by writing the open letter on True, and then working with Rick Ross on Heavenly Bodies. Even the 2 Chainz remix of True was good, even though I felt like Lloyd should have done more with it. And then you had a record like Excited. That was my personal favorite. I also got to shout out Lil Wayne because the chemistry between Wayne and Lloyd is good, and they have a record on the EP as well. Excited is a record I find myself listening to over and over again. It just has a nice bounce to it, and it's catchy. So Lloyd's EP was definitely going to make the list. I felt as soon as he announced, I was like, yeah, this is going to be on my list. It has to be. Lloyd is someone who has only gotten better with time, and I'm interested to see what a full body of work in 2017 will sound like. Next up on my list, and we have 3 more, so we're getting there. We're almost there. Next on my list is Vic Mensa's There's a Lot Going On. This was a little EP, mixtape, album, whatever you want to call it. It was only 8 songs, but it had such an impact on it. I think Vic is going to become huge in 2017. I think he had a good year. Could have had a better year, in my opinion. I think a lot of people kind of slept on the EP, but the music is just there. You need someone who's going to speak for the streets, for the community, for Chicago, for all the neighborhoods that are just having all these problems with gun violence and, people that need help. I think you need someone like Vic Mensa, because as opposed to like a Chance the Rapper, and you can't really like separate the two, because they came up together, they're friends, but they have 2 different paths to each other. Chance takes the more positive approach, while I think Vic is definitely more along the lines of like a Malcolm X type of character, and Chance would be like MLK. And I did this comparison. I want to say I did it in the review that I did, the video, and in the article that I wrote, and thankfully nobody like kind of got upset about it, because I can understand why you might, but I think it's a very fair comparison to make. And so Vic takes this more aggressive approach. He's more in your face. 16 Shots was really in your face and calling out Flint and all the people that were behind the whole water crisis. Like, he wasn't afraid to say what he had to say about those situations. He's not afraid to call out police that are corrupted, that are shooting innocent black men across America, black men and women. So Vic has a very important voice, and it's one that we need. We got a lot of other artists that are talking about some stuff too, and I feel like Vic just adds to that. You need all the voices that you can now, is basically what I'm trying to say. As if Lloyd Banks wasn't enough GUnit for the list, we have GUnit's The Lost Flash Drive mixtape. This was great because it showed you the chemistry that GUnit had. Minus 50 Cent, who's for some reason not on any of those songs. The Lost Flash Drive was a collection of songs that was recorded back when we had the GUnit reunion in 2014, and you got to see like how hungry everybody was. It was the project that served as a nice precursor to Lloyd Banks' return, because it made me want more Lloyd Banks. Listening to some of his hooks, how catchy they were, listening to him go in and kill it, and you know, having Young Buck there. Kid was always like the head scratch of the group. Like, why would you just throw Kid in? I know he was signed to 50 Cent's GUnit Records, but he was never a part of the group. So it was one of those things where it's like, why is he here? But I think he's proven himself. Even if GUnit never does another album, which it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. They just did those EPs and faded out again. But if they do and Kid's a part of it, I wouldn't be mad at it, because he did prove that he has the chemistry with the group. And I liked it. I think all of them are just underrated. Especially Yayo. Yayo was showing out on that tape too. So The Lost Flash Drive was one of the more enjoyable projects for me in 2016. The last album on my list is A Tribe Called Quest. Their final album, We Got It From Here. Thank You For Your Service. This album was miraculous. It was one that you just never saw coming. If you would have said that a new Tribe album was dropping at the top of 2016, that it would drop in November, a lot of people would have looked at you like, what? No, they're not going to do another album. But they did another album. Unfortunately, Phife wasn't around to see what it manifested into. I'm so glad that he and Q-Tip were able to mend their relationship and were able to get into the studio and do as much work as possible. But I can't help but feeling like, damn, what would this mean if Phife was still alive? You would probably see a Tribe Called Quest tour. It might not even be the final album. If the reception to the album was the same as it is now, you would probably expect them to do more music together. To me, the album sounded like it was suspended in time, but it wasn't in a way that made it sound outdated. Like, it sounds like a 1990s Tribe album with a modern twist, because you had records that are talking about how, just talking about everything that's been going on in America. You know, Donald Trump getting elected, all the police brutality, etc. So I felt like they did a wonderful job at creating a Tribe album. And I hope it's one that new listeners picked up on, listened to, and then decided to go and revisit some of the older albums, because they all kind of fit as one great discography. It was just the perfect way for A Tribe Called Quest to end their legacy, in my opinion. So those are my top 10 favorite albums of 2016. It's a longer video. I really didn't anticipate it to be this long. But let me know what your top 10 favorite albums are of the year in the comment section below. Talk about my list if you want to. Let's discuss it. Then like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video. Follow me on Twitter at @SermonsDomain. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, peace.